Good evening, everyone. Today is Sunday, July 14th, and I thank you for joining me this evening, or maybe this is going to be a Monday morning listen for you, for this weekend wind down. And what a wind down it has been. I have been, like most Americans, very thoughtful, very pensive, very sad today for what we witnessed on Saturday, July 13th, where Americans came together to support a candidate that they believe in and had to endure a tragic event and sadly a loss of life. I thank you again for joining me on The Listening Path, The Creative Art of Attention by Julia Cameron. And we are on week 4. Really, this has been a 5-week journey because I did an introduction to the Artist Way the first week. But in the book, it is week 4, Listening Beyond the Veil. And so I did an introduction to the Artist Way. We had then listened to ourselves, our environment. We listened to others. We listened to our higher self. And now we are listening beyond the veil. Seeing death as the end of life is like seeing the horizon at the end of the ocean. David Searles. What I love about Julia Cameron's writing is that she places quotes throughout the page, and this one had a lot of lovely ones to look at, to think about, to journal about. I never know where my writing prompts are going to come to. And in speaking on writing, being that this is the 5th week that we are on this 6-week condensed artist way journey together. The Artist Way is a 12-week program. The Listening Path condenses it down to a 6-week program. This is week 4, so there's 2 more weeks, 2 more Sundays. How are you doing? How are you doing using your tools of doing your stream of consciousness writing in the morning? How are you doing with taking yourself out on an artist date? How are you doing with taking that walk with yourself? I did that a lot today. I was an array of emotions today. I lived in New York for some time. I am a businesswoman. I am an entrepreneur. I have been since an early age. I've also worked for other people. I've helped people start their businesses up. And so just, looking over my life today and things that I have done, and I want to keep all this down to a very low simmer because I will be talking about this later on in the week. But I was very pensive today and very thoughtful. I woke up today and feeling like that there's just a heaviness, I'm having a hard time finding words, and when I'm like that, it's because I haven't really sat with my feelings long enough to process them. So I will actually be speaking about what happened yesterday in Pennsylvania later on in the week. So this week, today, as we wind down our weekend, this week we will listen deeper yet, and we will reach to connect to those who have passed on. As we are now in the habit of listening to our environment, our fellows, and our higher selves, we will find that the next step is not as much of a reach as we might assume. We will find that those who have crossed through the veil may feel closer than we expected, and that if we can resist our own resistance, listening for them can be both casual and gentle. if you are going through a time of grief right now, just know that my heart is heavy for your grief. I lost my own father back in 2020, March, and it feels like yesterday some days, and it feels like so long ago other days. But when I was teaching yoga, and I taught yin yoga more than I taught vinyasa yoga, even restorative yoga, yin yoga, I had approached this subject of very, very gently and very, just baby touched it, I want to say, because a few of my students were all going through grief at the same time. And I had, you know, in my own readings and in my own journey of dealing with grief, dealing with loss, there was an Indian tradition that I had learned about where I use this all the time. And I even used this when my little Yorkie of 19 years passed away, my little Yorkie Honor. And I did it when Love passed away, and I did it when Bella passed away. But I did it recently when Honor passed away. He passed away after my dad. And what I do is I set up a place of remembrance in my home. Pictures. Now you could do this, you know, in your own way. A lot of people create boards when loved ones pass away of pictures, but I placed on my piano. So I'm gonna I don't know what's more. Well, I'm gonna talk about Honor, and I had this beautiful picture of Honor where I was in Maryland, and I used to stay at the Harbor Inn in St. Michael's, Maryland, and they all knew, everybody knew Honor. Everybody knew Honor. Honor had his own Facebook page, and Honor would, everyone knew Honor at the Harbor Inn, and it was during the fall that I had gone out there, and he had this cute little sweater on, and they had all these beautiful pumpkins all around, and you know, it's Maryland, and you're near the water, you're near the marina, and I took this beautiful picture of him sitting near the pumpkins. And all that weekend I had taken pictures of him, you know, having coffee with me, and pumpkins were everywhere. And he died in August, late August. And so I took this beautiful picture that I had of him, and I put it on my piano, and I had beautiful candles and, you know, things that reminded me of him on my piano. And then in the native tradition, what they do is they light a candle and they keep it lit until it burns out. And I, not feeling that that was safe, I get a candle that has, you know, a battery operated candle. You know, it looks like a real candle, it flickers and all that. And I place that on the piano next to Honor. And oh my God, I had a hard time with all my pets with this one, but the idea is that when they're gone, they're very, very close. The memory, everything that's going on is very close to you, and the light is very bright. They're still with you. But as the candle dims, they're moving further away from you, moving through the veil. And Honor's candle stayed on for so long, longer than any of my other pets. And every time I thought that it was gone out, it would relight again. And it was my own grief, I believe. My own grief that kept relighting that candle, that in some way he was coming back to me to comfort me, which is what our pets always do, don't they? They come back and they comfort us through everything. And I just knew I had to do what I do, which is sit and write and thank him for being my pet. And I always say I chose him, but he chose me too.
and let him go. And then that candle went out. And so that is something that I use through all my grief, all of like trying to process what is going on. And every time I came into my room and the candle was lit and it was bright, and I would make me think of Honor, and then I would slowly see it start to fade, and I would be okay that it was fading and that he was on his journey and he was getting to where, because that's what the Native Americans believe, that they're on their journey, and as they're moving closer to their destination, the light subsides. And I've told that to a few of my students that are having a hard time processing grief, and it has helped them. And you know, I really don't plan what it is that I'm going to talk about at any time, whether I'm sitting in a whip and chat or I'm sitting here with you and we're discussing this book or whatever. I just don't plan what I am going to say, because it's very important to me to come across as honest and true and authentic, you know, to always aim north. So in Julia's book, she writes about connecting to the world beyond. The fourth tool of the listening path asks us to listen to the world beyond the veil. This requires spiritual openness. Unlike many societies who revere their ancestors and ask them for guidance, our society tends to think that ancestors and deceased friends are beyond our reach. Not so, says the listening path. If we are open to it, we can hear from those who have passed on. All that is required is the willingness to experiment. As we reach out to our deceased loved ones, they reach back to us. It is not uncommon to hear them speaking as they spoke in life. All that is required is that we open the door. And so we write, can I hear from? So you take your journal out. Can I hear from? Now, I have a beautiful picture of my dad. You may have seen it when I'm doing my whip and chat. And it's on my stairway. And when I sit in my chair in the living room, he's looking right at me. And there's plenty of time that I'm alone during the day, or I just am like, you know, just like beside myself some days, and I'm talking to my dad, and it never fails. I find a quarter. In fact, I found a bunch of them today, and me and John were in the closet, and, you know, I was talking to my dad, you know, because my mom was over, and I really don't understand what's going on with my mother these days. John and I are preparing a party for her. She's going to be 84 on Wednesday, and we're having a big party at the house for her on Sunday. And my husband is taking his band and he's setting it up, and we have a tent, and I'm making all the food. And I just am like, I don't know. I find anymore that she was here today, and like, I'm just like going over the guest list with her. Do you have anybody else you want me to invite? And, you know, it's just like short, and I don't understand what's going on. Anyway, so I talked to my dad, and, you know, sure enough, we're in the closet, me and John today. And I'm like, here you go. He's always listening to me. Here's the quarter. Here's the sign from my dad. I don't know if you guys have that superstition or belief that when someone passes away, the first coin that you see is like their message that they're trying to get to you. And the first coin that I found was a quarter. And I'm like, really, Dad? You could have been like a penny? I find pennies everywhere. Well, let me tell you, I find so many quarters sometimes in my house, I don't even bother to pick them up. I'm like, okay, Dad, I know you're listening to me. So, and my girlfriend Kim, her dad died when, you know, God, when I first met her, and I met her when I was 17, and, you know, a lot of years. And her dad died when we were, you know, young in our 20s, and I knew how close they were. And she tells me all the time, Elisa, when you're feeling confused, just talk to your dad. And, you know, and she's like, you'll always get a sign. And Julie is saying, as, you know, can I hear from X? The answers come promptly and easily. We hear our loved ones speaking, sometimes so easily that we doubt the communication can be real. But what if it is real? Don't doubt our bond. We are chided, and so we are asked to set our skepticism aside. We are asked to be vulnerable, childlike, and open. When we cooperate, we are rewarded by further communication. And I think childlike is such an appropriate word here, because I have had friends, I've had family, you know, always say, like, friends will say, oh yeah, like when my girlfriend Denise, who I spoke about the other day, when her sister died, they were very close. Her sister was very well known here in the Philadelphia area. She was a healer. She did craniosacral therapy, and she loved animals, and she loved what she did, and she loved the song "You Are My Sunshine." And one of her friends, one of Denise's friends, said, oh, my son's upstairs singing. And Denise is like, what is he singing? She loved kids too. She's like, what is he singing? We always get such a kick out of kids. And she's like, oh, I don't know, I'm gonna go sneak up on him. And Denise was on the phone, and he was singing "You Are My Sunshine." And she's like, oh, that's so beautiful. She was saying to her son, where did you learn that song? And he said, Jill's singing it with me, which is Denise's sister. And, you know, I've had my own family members say that they see so-and-so. And I was just watching an interview with Diary of a CEO on YouTube, and Steven, who is the host, was interviewing Simon Cowell. And I thought, do I really want to sit through an interview with Simon Cowell? But it's like 2.5 hours, and I really got pulled into it, got pulled into his life and his upbringing and his parents, and really realized what a kind, open, sensitive, creative, and I think that if you are listening to this and this topic and you've hung with this artist journey, you're creative and you're open and you're sensitive, and all this makes sense to you. And his young son, his mother gave his young son a brown blanket, and he said, it was everything that my son has. It was always about the brown blanket, the brown blanket, the brown blanket. And when his mother died, all his child wanted was the brown blanket. But there was something else that Simon said about his mother, and you know, that he says it too. He talks to his parents. He knows that they are there. I speak to people who have passed on as a daily practice, says Julia. As I reach out, they hear me and respond. The first is a spirit named Jane Cecil, a close friend and advisor during her lifetime. I spoke to her daily and was grateful for her wise counsel. Can I hear from Jane? I ask. I hear back promptly. Julia, I am right at your side, she continues. You are led carefully and well. There is no error in your path. Having greeted me and set me at ease, Jane is ready to be more specific. She turns her attention to the issue at hand. Your book is going well, she tells me. Keep a steady pace. Do not second-guess yourself. Jane's messages are brief and direct. They are soothing, have the uncanny knack of addressing precisely my current concerns. Sometimes they pinpoint a concern before I have identified it. Jane may say, you're clean and sober. You'll continue to be firm in your sobriety. Until Jane spoke, I was not consciously aware of my nagging worry about drinking, but there it was. Jane's wisdom had surpassed my own. So Julia Cameron wrote The Artist's Way, and it's a 12-week program in recovery of your creative self. It is a spiritual awakening to creativity, and where your gift comes from, your creative gift from God, and that your gift to the world is to give back your creativity to the world. And she wrote this book after, you know, becoming sober, because like most artists and most creatives, and you hear these people too that, you know, have great creative ideas and great creative success, and they'll tell you that, you know, like, well, I wrote this book when I was drunk, or, you know, I thought of this concept, you know, after, you know, a night of partying or whatever. And the one that I remember that I think is, you know, really burned into my brain, probably because, you know, my son grew up with this, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. How can we relate? We're in the middle of summer with the Masters. Who would think about a bunch of turtles being named after the Masters? Michelangelo, Raphael. And those guys, when they said, you know, how did you come up with this concept about turtles? And they were like, well, yeah, we were stoned. you don't come up with this when, you're like, thinking in your right brain, because you just like laugh it off, but it just got crazier and crazier and funnier, as I guess they were like high and giggling and stuff, and they put it to the masses, and the masses bought it. But Julia's fear has always been her drinking, and as I read this, I can tell that that's always been her fear, that she would not be able to be creative unless she was drinking, unless she had a drink by her side that would loosen her up and loosen her writing up. After talking to Jane, Julia writes, I turned my attention to another friend, Alberta Honston, a breeder of championship Morgan horses. Alberta's communique retained the flavor of the horse showing ring. Julia, you are a champion, she may tell me. No obstacle is too much for you. You are strong. I give you stamina and grace. Like Jane's, Alberta's message is reassuring. They tackle what I think of as my hidden concerns. I worry that I am not enough. But Alberta assures me that I am plenty. She calls me a champion. Horse talk for excellent. Alberta, like Jane, urges me to trust the reality of our ongoing bond. You reach to me, and I reach to you. Alberta reassures me. You talk to me, and I talk to you, she asserts. We are as we always were, she pronounces. Our bond is eternal. And there's a quote, realize that everything connects to everything else. Leonardo da Vinci. Faced with such reassurances, I find myself trusting. When I write out what I hear, I find myself thinking that more people should try my simple tool. Ask to hear and then listen. It was need that triggered my reaching out to my friends. In life, we talk daily. In death, the habit continued. There were topics I could only raise with Jane, topics I could only raise with Alberta. My need for continued contact and advice led me to listening. I would pose the question, can I hear from Jane about fill in the blank? And then I would listen as if she were right in the room with me. I found that she was with me, pen in hand. I took dictation, writing from Jane about X. And I did this with Denise, and I still do it. And I still hear the same thing from her. Elisa, you need to go sit on yourself, meaning go sit on your meditation mat, your cushion. You need to sit with yourself. You need to listen. Everything you know, every question you have, you know already. You know the answer. You know. I mean, and I really never really accepted I don't know for myself. I may have used it, but never believed what I was saying when I say, oh, I don't know. You know. Maybe you don't want to know, but you know. And I would hear Denise all the time, and I just heard her laugh. And if you know what I'm talking about. Let me see. Where did I leave off here? Okay. It was the same with Alberta. In her lifetime, I frequently asked her to pray for me. Nervous about teaching, I would call her. Stick me in the prayer pot, I would request. Alberta's prayers gave me confidence. I could feel their steadying impact. When she died, suddenly, unexpectedly, I posed my request to the ethers. Alberta, please help me. Pen in hand, I would listen for her response. You will do very well, promised Alberta from the ethers. I give you wisdom, stamina, and grace. Writing down what I heard, I found myself marveling at Alberta's poise and dignity, the same in death as in life. Both Jane and Alberta retained their characteristics. They were recognizably the same. When I reached to them, they reached back to me, displaying a heartening eagerness to connect. Their messages were always encouraging. I came away from our contact feeling seen. It was as though I had enjoyed a happy visit during their lifetime. I had the sense that they were not really gone. For some time, I kept my visitations to myself. Our contact felt real to me, and I didn't want to experience doubt or skepticism from another. How true. Over time, my conviction that we were actually in contact grew, not lessened. I found myself confiding to a few select friends our ongoing bond. Jane said, I would say, or Alberta mentioned. To my relief, my friends did not scoff at my revelation. I had feared that I would sound too woo-woo. When I confessed this fear, I was greeted with understanding. As one friend remarked, Julia, woo-woo is where it's at. You're lucky to have direct contact, Scotty Pierce tells me, but I feel luck has little to do with it. Open-mindedness does. If more people would experiment with making contact, communication with deceased loved ones would be commonplace. But Julia, what if your responses from the afterlife are just wishful thinking? If so, my wishful thinking leads me in a positive direction. There can be no harm in the positive. The contact bolsters our self-worth. As we strive to be worthy of our messages, we become better, stronger people. Our wishful thinking leads us forward. It has been 3 years since Jane passed on and 2 years for Alberta. I began writing to them promptly, and I now have several years' worth of messages. Leafing back through my journals, I find that their messages stay essentially the same. They are upbeat and reassuring. They urge me to have faith, to trust that I am on track, well and carefully led. I find no dire warnings. Perhaps their guidance keeps trouble at bay. Julia, I hear from Alberta, your creativity is intact. Julia, Jane echoes her, you are as strong as ever. I sometimes read Scotty Pierce what I have been told. When I share with her that I am confused over some issue in my life, she will ask me, did you ask your guidance? What did Jane and Alberta say? Over the years, Scotty has come to trust my guidance as I do. For my part, I find myself able to talk to her of messages. She listens to me closely and never scolds me for being too woo-woo. My believing Mira, Sonia Coquette, is another confidant. When I tell her Jane or Alberta's take on something, she urges me to trust their input. When I confess to her that I find it easy to contact them, so easy I sometimes doubt our contact can be real, Sonia, a third-generation psychic, scolds me. Don't think it has to be hard, she warns me. Communication with spirits is easy and natural. Don't think you need a lot of elaborate schooling. And so, unschooled but open-minded, I persist in my contact. I ask, can I hear from Jane? Can I hear from Alberta? And I listen for their response. They are an integral part of my listening path, and I have learned to trust their messages are real. As we begin to explore this contact, we will at first be tempted to discount the messages we hear. Shouldn't it be more difficult, we wonder? Shouldn't we have to struggle to hear beyond the veil? No, insists Sonia. What matters here is our clear expectation that we can and we will hear the voices of our beloveds. Our pure yearning for contact builds our bridge to the beyond. We pray to hear, and we do hear our loved ones answering our call. Their messages are reassuring. Don't doubt our bond, we are told, and so we must learn to doubt our doubts. We must trust as words form in our consciousness that the words forming come to us from beyond. We listen and take down what we hear. Our loved ones speak to us fondly and calmly. Unlike us, they do not doubt our connection. Rather, they welcome it and us. Their words come to us with clarity. We take down their messages and find ourselves comforted. Their loving intent is palpable. A sense of well-being comes to us. As we reach to the ethers, to our loved ones, they in turn reach back to us. We are loved. And we can feel that love, even after they have crossed through the veil. Can I hear from X? We ask, and it is as though we have placed a phone call. X answers us. You are in my custody, safe and protected, we are told. Pen to page, taking dictation as we listen. The loving messages unspools through the written word. There it is, in black and white. Contact. Julia then invites us to try this. I invite you to try woo-woo. Select a friend or family member to whom you felt particularly close to during your lifetime. Ask the simple question, can I hear from X? Be prepared for a quick response that yes, you can hear from X. Listen for what X has to tell you. Very often you will find it reassuring, as though you were picking up a thread of a cherished conversation.
The message may be brief but direct. In all likelihood, it will leave you feeling loved. Thank your correspondent for getting in touch with you if you wish. Promise to be in contact again soon. I was estranged from my family after I chose to separate from my ex-husband, which I am still in a state of woo-woo in another way, that you know, we had such a troubled marriage and we had been separated so many times that I just found it really, you know, confusing that my family thought that they couldn't talk to me or really, you know, the anger and the, you know, the picking of sides, which I never would do. He was my husband for 30 years. He was part of my family for 30 years. I would never ask my family to choose me over him, you know. So I was estranged from my mother, and it was very difficult because I did not tell my mother that I was separated because I was grieving my father, and my mother was grieving, and we were talking to each other every morning. And one morning I called her and she was very angry, and I knew that she knew, and I still don't know who told her that I had separated from my husband. And this began a very difficult relationship with my mother. I called her still. She was still very angry. I, you know, tried to process it as grief, but she just became angry and short, and in other words, like she just didn't want to be bothered. And I left the last conversation with her as, when you want to talk to me, I'm here. And that phone never rang. But her birthday was, my father died in March, and her birthday was in July, and she was turning 80. And I was very, very, didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. They don't want to hear from me. They're mad at me. They're choosing sides. They're, you know, cutting me off, cutting me out, making me feel like I made a mistake with my own life. And, you know, it was just a lot. It was a lot. And I was still grieving. And I remember being on my yoga mat and thinking that I would get clarity somewhere through my yoga practice, somewhere through my meditation, somewhere through my writing, and it was just not coming to me. And I remember saying to my dad, tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. And he said, Lisa, I heard him clear, as if he was sitting across from me. He said, Lisa, would you please send flowers to your mother from me? I always sent her flowers on her birthday, and she always made my birthday special. And she's 80, and I'm not going to be there. So would you please send her flowers from me and from you? And like that, I got up, I got on the internet, I found this beautiful bouquet, and I wished my mother a happy 80th birthday, and I signed it from Joey, how he always signed his cards, and your daughter, Elisa. And then I followed up with a phone call to make sure that she got them. But not so much about my relationship with my mother, more about having a very sad and confusing time in my life, and reaching out to my dad and hearing him answer me. So, Julia writes, listening through the veil. Susan Lander has curly brown hair and big eyes. She looks grounded, and she is grounded. She makes her living as a medium and a psychic, talking to and receiving messages from those who have passed on. She is a believing mirror, and I share my experiences reaching beyond the veil. Her easy confidence on the topic is contagious.
She believes that the afterlife, far from wishful thinking, is every bit as real as life on Earth. I'm excited for my conversation with her. I pick up the phone, reaching her in Florida. Our conversation, bubbling merrily as I ask her to talk about listening beyond the veil. For me, there are different dimensions of listening, Susan explains. There is listening in general conversation. There, I try not to be too superficial, but I often catch myself listening to respond, rather than listening deeply. It's challenging because I love to share experiences. When I catch myself doing this, I know it means I'm not listening to listen. I'm listening to respond. I'm a huge extrovert. I love talking. So I believe that, not even just speaking, listening beyond the veil, but listening in general. Are you the type of listener that listens to listen, or are you the type of listener that listens to respond? Julia then has a quote here that I really love from Mitch Bloom. We are all connected. You can no more separate one life from another than you can separate a breeze from the wind. And she also has another little exercise to try. Maybe the other one didn't ring with you. Maybe you want to try another one. Close your eyes and imagine yourself in a special location. Walk into the location imagining that you have a rendezvous with your spirit guide. Who and what do you see? Most important, what guidance you hear. Your guide is wise and gentle. Allow yourself to take in spiritual advice. Thank your guide for its guidance and return to your normal consciousness, knowing that you have established contact and that you can visit with your guide again whenever you need input. Well, I will tell you that I once did something similar with a psychologist, and she was actually drumming meditation, and she had asked me to tell her what I was feeling, what I was seeing while my eyes were closed, and I was seeing myself. There's this, I always have these like same kind of meditations. I never remember them until I talk about them, but that I am underwater, like I'm diving into water, coming out from water. And I remember seeing a wolf. I think maybe I was chasing a wolf, but also like, who do I see? And who I saw were my grandparents, my grandfather young, who died at 29, and my grandmother older, at 70, and they were together. But even though there was this huge age difference, they were not aware of it, and they just like held my hand, and we were like they were my grandparents, but they felt so close to me, like they were my parents. So I hope you enjoyed this chapter of Listening Path. I hope that you let me know if you did decide to do any of the exercises, or maybe you do this already, or share your experiences if you reach beyond the veil. I actually am working in the middle of the canvas because I love this topic so much. I didn't want to diamond paint a border, so I decided to diamond paint this beautiful face who was in this deeply meditative, calming, restful repose, as if, she's surrounded by angels, or maybe she's dreaming of a loved one. But it looks like she is in a beautiful dream to me. I'm covering the plastic back over because I can feel with my fingers if there's any drills that are up that I could pop back in. That when you put that plastic on top, you can feel it very easily. And then you can also glide your aligner. Look how fast I'm going. I mean, I know this is just a tiny bit sped up, but yeah, you can really glide like butter through your lines when you keep that plastic on top. I'm wishing you a restful and peaceful evening and the very sweetest of dreams. And I thank you again for keeping this little get-together that we have going. And I look forward to
talking with you later on in the week. I will do a live whip Wednesday, and I was moved to take out my glass pen and my ink, and the next time I decide to do this, I have to remind myself to open the bottle first, because you will see inky fingers, but that's nothing new for me. I always have inky fingers or paint or something going on, but that's a beautiful pen. I love, love, love this pen. Again, it's an Amazon find, and it came with a wax sealer in that beautiful book. And again, I wish you a restful, peaceful, dreamy evening and a beautiful night's rest. God bless America.